I don't know how I'm going to follow up with these amazing people, and I'm not quite sure how you all are still sitting here and haven't ran out of the room to do amazing things, because I have just been blown away by the few people that have been up here before me. But so yeah, I'm going to share a story about my daughter Alexis today. And this picture was taken in 2008. She was 13, almost 14 months old, and it's one of my favorite pictures because Alexis is holding something in both hands, and she's walking, and she was talking, and you know, this picture captures that vibrant, healthy, happy toddler that I had, and she was our only child. And at the time, my husband and I were living in College Station, Texas. And this picture, when I look at it, makes me really happy, and it also makes me really sad, because it's the last time that I have a picture of Alexis where she looks like that. And my following picture that I have of Alexis is this one. And as Susan had said, Alexis was the victim of shaken baby syndrome, or what we call abusive head trauma today, at the hands of her daycare provider in College Station, Texas. So what authorities believe happened is that Alexis was shaken and then thrown against something, which we don't know. And what it did to her was it shook her brain back and forth in her little skull, and it ripped all of those blood vessels apart, and it shook this way and it shook that way, and in the end it started to cause bleeding in her brain and blood forming in the back of her eyes, and her brain started swelling, and her system was shutting down, and she was dying. And we were lucky enough that Alexis, the EMTs, got to her on time, and this is a picture 3 days after she was injured. The first 3 days were very, very touch and go with her. They weren't sure that she was even going to survive, and we were lucky enough that she did. And so she was in a coma and spent the next 10 days in a coma on a ventilator. And after we got through the part where we knew she was going to live, the next thing was, well, how is she going to live? And it was really scary, and the doctors were very scared, because what they saw was that she didn't have any reflexes anymore, things that some people, if they are in a coma, still have some natural reflexes, and Alexis didn't have that. And when they put her in the MRI and she got out, and they could see her brain scans, they said, well, her brain is dying all around. So, you know, we're starting to already see not only just these pools of blood, but her brain is dissolving. And so if she wakes up, when she wakes up, we don't know what her life is going to be like. Here are some of the things that you're going to expect. She's probably going to look a lot like that. And so that wasn't okay for us, and we had a lot of family support and prayers, and Alexis woke up after 10 days, and when she woke up, a miracle happened because she could breathe on her own. And to me, that was a sign like, oh my gosh, okay, well, that's one thing they said she probably wasn't going to be able to do. So we've got that part. What's next? And as time went on and time went on, this is what Alexis looked like a couple weeks after she woke up from her coma. Her arms and legs didn't move, and her right hand was stuck like this, and her eyes were rolled into the back of her head, you know, but she could breathe on her own. She couldn't hold her head up, she couldn't suck, she couldn't swallow. And again, we were still asking, what can we do? And they gave us two options, and our first option was, you can take her home and you can see what happens. And that wasn't okay for us, because I don't think I could have ever prepared myself to take a child home that looked like that. So we said, what else is there? And they said, well, you can try to find a rehabilitation hospital. So, you know, you're thinking that's really easy, right? Because there's hospitals everywhere, and we've got all of this technology, and it's 2008, so we can cure things and fix things, and it's not that easy. There were a couple of places that we talked to in Texas, and they were like, we don't know, we don't really take babies, she's too young. The level that she's at, there's probably not a whole lot that we can do with her. And then one day our social worker walked in, and she said, have you ever heard of a place called Madonna? It's in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we said, oh my gosh, we're gonna go home. My husband's from Omaha, and I was originally from Cozad, and we're both grads of UNL, so okay, we're gonna come home. And so we talked to the people at Madonna, and they were willing to take her. So literally, they were the only place in the country that was willing to take somebody at the level of doing nothing, and as little as Alexis was, they were willing to take her. So this first video that I'm going to show you is Alexis when we got to the hospital at Madonna, which was in April of 2008. And you can see she's doing physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy, and it was super intense, like 7 days a week, and each of these therapies was 2 and 3 times a day, and they were an hour long. So I mean, full days of just intense, specialized rehabilitation was happening there at the hospital. So as I go back to this next slide of mine that I have, you can see that Alexis is working with a therapist, and what we started to learn during that time was a lot about rehabilitation, and what we were learning is that all of Alexis's brain pathways were being rebuilt. So places that didn't exist in her brain anymore, she had healthy cells that were taking over those functions, and she was learning to do all of these things again. And so we were still inpatient in the hospital, and we said, okay, well, obviously this is working. We've got to figure out how we can make this keep working. And so my husband and I decided that we were going to quit our jobs and move back to Lincoln, and we'd just figure things out from there. And so that's what we did. And so during this time, Alexis, I show this picture because I love it, because it was right towards the end of her inpatient stay. And you know, she still can't push herself up, and the therapist is holding her hip and telling her muscles and teaching her what to do. And it's all that neuroplasticity that if you follow that you hear about. And there's all sorts of ways that can happen. But this is what was happening to Alexis at that time. So my favorite story is Alexis and her vision. Because for 2 months, Alexis was blind after she was hurt. And there wasn't anything wrong with her eyes, but the back of her brain, where she processes all of that visual information, was gone. It doesn't exist anymore in her head. And there was a therapist who came in every day, and she'd darken the room, and she'd take this little lighted wand, and she'd move it back and forth over Alexis's eyes. And she did this, and she did this, and she did this. And every day, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, one day, early in the morning, Alexis woke up, and Holly came in, and she put that wand in front of her, and Alexis's eyes moved like 1/2 millimeter. And Holly said, "She did it!" And so the next day when Holly came in, they moved a little bit more, and they moved a little bit more, and pretty soon they had these prism glasses on Alexis, and they were distorting her vision, and they were telling her, eyes, when you take in this picture, you're going to process in a different part of your brain. And so Alexis now gets to see everything that everybody thought that she wasn't going to be able to for 2 months. So the other thing, this next video that I'm going to show is Alexis sitting up. And this is like neuroplasticity to me at its best, and teaching the muscles how to do things. You can see they're teaching Alexis how to sit up, and they're cueing all of those muscles, and they're saying, arm, push here. And we did this over and over, and you can see this last picture. This is 1.5 years after Alexis is hurt. Her muscles finally, for the first time, were able to tell her brain, that's what you do, that's how you sit up. So that was 1.5 years. Yeah, that was our family. We were all very excited for it, but it was so important. And it was one of those things, it was like 1,000 times, I bet this had happened at therapy and at home. So this next video is Alexis walking, and this is kind of another big one where her therapists are moving her legs. She can't move her legs. She can't hold herself up. You know, her arms aren't moving. I mean, she literally just kind of hangs there. You can see that. And there's a part in this video where the therapist takes off her hands from Alexis's legs, and then Alexis just hangs there because her legs don't know how to move one in front of the other anymore. Just like that, you see. And so when we go to this next video that we have, this is Alexis in October of 2008, so about 6 months after her injury. And this is the first time we put her in this little walker with a harness, but her legs know how to move in front of one another now, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. And yeah, so when we go to this next video, which is in 2010, so this is 2 years after Alexis's injury, she's still walking those halls, and now she can hold herself up, but her therapist is still saying, legs, you need to do this, muscle here, you need to fire. And this went on, and then this next video that I'm going to show you is in 2011. So we're 3.5 months out from her injury now, and this is Alexis on what they call a Locomat, and there's only like 12 or 13 of these pediatric Locomats in the entire US, and we're just lucky enough that Lincoln has one of them. But Alexis, you can see the robotics on her legs that are giving her those same amount of steps that all these other kids her age have taken like a million gazillion more steps than she has at this point, but it's just training her brain over and over and over. Here's what you need to do. So as I go to this next slide, I talk about all of these things, and you can see in this next picture that that Alexis is not only doing these big things like sitting up and walking and getting her vision back, but she's starting to do speech therapy and having to learn how to communicate again and having to work on all of those fine motor skills. So these are just like really quick shots and just a glimpse of like all the things that Alexis has been through. And then I get back to this picture and I stop and I think, wow, she's had almost 3,000 hours of therapy, and somebody told us that it was going to be okay to take that little girl home. And you know what happens? It still happens today. And it happens all across the United States. It's okay to take these kids home because there's nothing we can do with them. They're going to live a life blind, and that's okay. And to me, that wasn't okay. And so I sit here and I see me and I see that little girl, and I remember that that little girl was never going to be this little girl. And I find that really, really hard to believe. Actually, it's not even true, right? So why is this so important to you? Is because, you know, our medical technology is amazing, and we're saving people's lives all the time that are in these horrible accidents, that have these bad injuries and these severe illnesses, and we're saving their lives. But when we're done saving these 1.5 million Americans' lives, we're saying, okay, you've got 2 weeks to recover, or just go home, or there's not a specialized rehabilitation center anywhere near you, so parents and caregivers, figure out how your loved one is going to live this life. It's the same thing that's happening with our soldiers that are coming home. I mean, a brain injury today is a signature wound of the war, and yet we're saying, it's okay, figure out what you're going to do. Because first of all, you're not going to make any sort of recovery after a year. That was another thing we were told. And I'm pretty sure I just showed you Alexis sitting up after a year and a half. The other thing that I think is that in this day and age, and we talk about the healthcare system, and it's a big topic, is we have started to make decisions financially for the short term, and we're not thinking about that we're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet we're sending our sick home to live in a way that they don't have to live anymore today. So I think that this is one of the most amazing statistics that I've seen, that $1 spent on medical rehabilitation is $37 in savings. So you think about Alexis just in these 4.5 years and those 3,000 hours of therapy, and it really in what her lifetime is going to be like. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars just with one person. So you think about that for the whole entire United States, if we would just commit to helping these people rehabilitate instead of saying, it's okay to go home. It's okay to have multiple surgeries. It's okay if you want to go and you're going to have to send your loved one to a nursing home because you can't quit your job because you've got 4 other children to feed. Because that's what we're doing. So Alexis is the little girl who was never going to talk again. She was, if she did talk, she was never going to talk in a sentence. She was never going to walk again. And she was never going to go to school. She wasn't going to be able to breathe on her own. And she wasn't going to be able to see. And so that is the little girl that I want to introduce to you today. She got to take a little bit of time out of recess and lunch to be with us all. Can you wave? Is there anything you want to say? Or you just want to say thank you? And so that's the end of my speech. So thank you all for coming. Can you wave one more time? You want to take a bow?